Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome today to Zafter Africa, today's talk show on Voice of Africa. Today we'll be talking about the issues of immigration in today's society as a widely talked about topic. And today I have in my midst two very interesting guests, Mr. Frank from Cameroon and Mr. Michael from Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Today I will be your host. My name is Michael, I'm from Nigeria. Mr. Michael from Ethiopia. Today the issue of immigration has widely been talked about. Topic. What are your takes on this?
Okay, thanks for having me, and good morning, good evening, and how are you, all my After African viewers? So, as the topic has been raised, and we have to start by picking up from what he said. So, today it's been contemplated that immigration is a general issue in the whole world. Yeah, because immigration is a general issue in the whole world because of we've seen a lot of destabilizations around the world, and in the case of Africa, when it comes to Africa, there is a lot to talk about because, first of all, the corrupted governments, the less resources, and things like that. So, but I have to say something at this point because in Africa, immigration it is widely exaggerated through the media because we have two types of immigration in Africa, right? The first one is post-colonial immigration. You understand? After most African countries have their independence from the colonial powers. And then we have pre-colonial immigration. So now we have to focus in the post-colonial immigration. So in Africa, the highest point of immigration have been seen in 1991. Most Africans immigrated at that point. So now when you come to the 2010s and 5s, we've seen immigration exaggerated. It's not at its peak. You understand? So that's my take on it to start this, and maybe my brother Frank may elaborate on this one.
That's very interesting. Based on talking about the movements and everything, he was talking about the post and the pre-colonial area of immigration. What are your takes on this, Mr. Frank?
Thank you for having me, Mike, and dear viewers, good evening or good morning, wherever you are around the world. We are talking about immigration. Okay. Like you said, the things about Africa. In Africa, we are witnessing immigration. That means people are leaving the country, that are immigrating from the country to another country. He talk about the post-colonial and the pre-colonial. Actually, I will take on another way, like concerning what I will ask first of all about the root. What's the main reason people are immigrating? What's the main reason people are leaving their country to go and seek great picture to another country? As an African, I understand that we sometimes feel that the paradise is somewhere else. We are trying, like we are seeing through media, we are seeing Hollywood and those stuff. We think that there is better than where we are. Actually, yes, it might be better, but we can create our own paradise in our own country. So immigration issues, I will say, in this point, the good and the bad. We have to immigrate to learn what other people are doing. We have to immigrate to meet people, to meet other civilization, but we don't have to leave our country, especially the youth today. We are witnessing 50% of African youth want to leave their country. It doesn't matter where, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Cameroon. In Africa, there's a high rate of young people who want to leave their country. I will take that about maybe war, corruption. I will put that on the fact of maybe bad governance. They want to see, like I said before, a green picture somewhere else. That's that's very bad as an African. We want our country to grow. I think that's the main reason why you guys set up as South Africa. We want our country to grow. And for country to grow, for Africa to grow, for Africa to emerge, we need our people to stay. We need our people to stay there and to be that strength to give the because they are the main factor for the growing of the continent. If our youth today are leaving to go somewhere else, I don't know how. I'm not saying how we are going to the continent will be developed. So for my take, I want to talk about the post-colonial or the pre-colonial immigration, but I will say about the reason why are we leaving our country. Yeah, it's good. You can leave your country to go abroad and study for 5 years, 6 years, as we are doing now, and then bring back that knowledge at home. That's the great country like America or US. They have been developed by people, by migrants. So why not having that kind of creating that kind of environment in Africa to make other people come to Africa and not people to leave Africa? Because that's what we need. We are talking about the growing of Africa. We are talking about developing of Africa. For my take, I will just stated that point first, and then during the show that I'm going to give to elaborate more.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Frank. Mr. Frank here quite stated the high rate and the reasons of immigrations, why people from Africa, why the rate of movement of Africans from their country to different countries for the search of greener pastures has been a major problem. That's quite interesting, and it's been said in history that at this point of time, the movement of people, especially Africans, there's been a very high number of people, Africans, and I really did think because what do you think? What do you think is the reasons of this?
I actually have to correct you on that one. Africans are not the most. Are not doing the most movement at this point. Okay. Maybe as I said before, in 1991, maybe we've been at our peaks. But right now, the most immigrants or immigrations are from the Middle East, and then Africa is second to the Middle East, and then we're followed by North Americans and Canadians. So your question was, why are we moving out? Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically he said it all. Corruption, instability, war, famine. That's all we have. And I don't know what you want me to elaborate. Maybe, yeah.
On the issue of you said war.
Yeah. Exactly.
You said corruption. Exactly. You said these reasons. On these reasons, like how can they be coped in today? Like
how can they be curbed?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you see, it's not. I raise pre and post colonial stuff. So my brother here just dismissed them without me elaborating. So now it's time for me to elaborate, right?
Yep.
So post colonial Africa, as you know, it's a bit of a mess. You understand? So the colonial powers, most of them made our like borders and everything. So we have a lot of wars and inter tribal wars and things like that. So those things continue for ages, and then historically, as we know, things will. It's like the domino effect, you know that, right? One generation affect the other, and then we're at this point. So we don't have any time to assess our development, to work our mind. So, but when I say this, it's not the only reason. I mean, we cannot only blame the colonial powers. Mm-hmm. Of course, we all know that the greed and the self-love amongst our what do you call it, leaders. Mm-hmm. So basically, that's yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Frank here. Yeah. How negatively has immigration affected Africans?
If I want to put on the scale of 100%, I would say 99%. Immigration today, we are Africa is I would say in quote is the poorest continent in the world. People there are living bad. Like the way of living is not really that good, but not because Africa lack resources, but just because our leaders are giving people, they make them believe what they are seeing on TV, especially Hollywood and other stuff. with a country in a country where leaders are not pay attention of the growing of young people, they don't give the good education, they don't provide the good health system, they don't provide what young people are seeing, that they're not following the growing around the world. For imagine it's somebody who dream to be a pilot, or maybe his dream is to be an engineer, a kind of Stephen Jobs. If the leaders or the president of that country do not give him the environment where he can pursue his dreams, of course, seeing like today we are living in the 21st century with the highest level of ITC, what is doing in another country, we get, obviously, we feel the need to leave the country, we feel the need to go where he can pursue his dreams. That's just normal. And in the 54th country in Africa, I think it's almost the same. The main reason, the rate of immigration is I would say 90% is very high, because I would say because of hunger, war, and for misgovernance. That's a motive to, you have to settle that point.
Mr. Mike, sorry for cutting you there. Mr. Mike from Ethiopia gave us an illustration. He gave us a stat that currently Africans are not the highest. In terms of immigration, they're not the highest.
Exactly.
My point here will be for the youth. About the youth, yes, Africa. I think Africa has the highest rate of immigration. Let's take an example. In my country, let's say Cameroon, if you try to give visa to 18 to the youth in Cameroon, all of them will leave. Right now, if you give visa maybe to Russian visa or US visa to Cameroon, to Cameroonian, young Cameroonian now, they will leave the country because they're not seeing the need to stay. They have been following, all of them, they have a dreams to follow. They have the dream they're dreaming of something that government or the way they are, they cannot pursue that dreams.
But these are vices that entices the youths today in the society.
Yeah, when it's like that, that's where I will say government is not playing his own part. He's not playing his role. When you see a high rate of when you see people who want to leave the can we have to understand why are they leaving the country. What's motivating them to leave? Why can I provide to them to stay and to grow? That's what other countries, let's say in Europe, European countries, they understood that they need people from around the world to help them growing, to help them boost their economy, to help them in technologies. How can they do? They know that knowledge is worldwide. Nobody has the monopoly of knowledge. So they have smart people all around the world. They have genius all around the world. But how to get the regionals? We have to provide them what they need. We have to provide them what they lack in the country, and that's really what Europe and other and America provide to young Africans, to people from Middle East. They give them what they need. They are providing them what they need. And if our leaders, if in Africa, if our leaders try to understand that part of the things, to settle the real environment where people can feel themselves, can be free to can have that what they are looking for to make the continent grow. I think that's will be a first point that will be very important to reduce the rate of immigration among young Africans.
All right, thank you. The point Mr. Frank has raised is quite arguably, I would say. He was basically talking about the economic aspect of immigration. Are you, in a stance, are you for this or against this?
Yeah, basically we all know that it's an economical problem. and they just want to pursue their dreams in another way, in another place, and as much as possible, they just want to escape. You know what? It's basically survival instinct.
Yep.
You understand? It's like basic evolutionary traits. Like it's normal. I mean, during the Dark Ages in Europe and in Northern South America, people flee from one place to another because of wars and things like that, even because of poverty. I mean, now we are in Russia, right? So basically, most of Russian people, even, they just want to flee their country because of two things. Most of them doesn't like living in such kind of weather, so it's basically a survival instinct thing. So now I think we have to talk about is how do we reduce African immigration. I think we should talk about the solution now, because we already discussed about why. So now how to curb now let's come to the solution, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
There you have it, our viewers. We have a really quite an interesting moment on immigration. Mr. Frank raised some few points. He brought out the problems of post-colonial and pre-colonial eras of immigration, and Mr. Frank talked about economical issues affecting today's affecting immigration today. Like we do have it, immigration will always be a talked about topic and a widespread topic. We'll go for a little commercial break, and when we're back. Welcome back to the talk show Voice of Africa, where today's episode has been on immigrations, the problems, and right now we want to see the solutions, various ways that the problems affecting immigrations can be solved. So I'll come back to you again, Mr. Michael.
All right. Okay. Basically, when we talk about the solutions, everybody offers that we eradicate poverty, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is how? How could we eradicate poverty? In my view, it's going to be a bit philosophical. So, how could we eradicate poverty and backward thinking, basically? To be honest, and the way we can do that is to change our philosophical view. I mean, to change our principles, basically eradicate everything and then come to the principle philosophy. What I'm trying to say right now is that we need people to dedicate their life. We need our nations and people to teach them the principle of dedication. Like, we have great dedicators in our country. Like, for example, we can take Selassie, Haile Selassie, we can take Kwame Nkrumah, Muammar Gaddafi himself, our leaders, like who want to create the United States of Africa. So how could we do that? Or maybe what kind of example can we take to radicalize our point of view? So let me take you back to the period of the Dark Ages in Europe. So during the 15th century, right, Europe was in Dark Ages, we all know that. And that means disease, poverty, ignorance was everywhere. But people are not principled at that time, more or less in Europe. So, but they have principled people, basically after the age of Renaissance. So those basically, like, most probably they are hungry. So those people changed the whole viewpoint of Europe so that they can plant the idea of principality in their people, and then the whole idea of Europe or the whole working environment changed. So I think basically we need to change our living philosophy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Wonderful, excellent. Yeah. That was great. Mr. Michael was talking. Yeah, just briefly briefed us on change of principle and the need of dedication from everyone in the fight to solve the issues of immigration. And yeah, Mr. Frank, what are your views?
I buy that point, but I will say yes, you have to be dedicated. You have to understand that only us can save us. You know, nobody can help you if you are not willing to help yourself. That means to fight immigration issue in Africa, Africa need to choose, know how to choose the leaders first of all, because when you choose a bad leader, of course you are going to have a bad governance that's going to create poverty, that's going to create that feeling of immigration. That's the first point. Also, we have to educate ourselves. We have to understand that we do not have to go where is the green picture. We have to create our own. How to create our own? We have to go with the campaign. We have to understand. We have to follow this spirit of entrepreneurship, because how when you create jobs, when you create when you emulate the sense of work, the sense of hardship in people, they understand that, yeah, I have to do like this one. We have to, like, in one way we have to create models, people that can carry a crew. And it's not like, let's say in Nigeria we have such people like Dangote. Yeah, we need those kind of people to make people dreaming about a real life. We need to have our own Steve Jobs. We need to have our own Mark Zuckerberg. We need those kind of people to emulate in younger generation. They how to be great. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a long process, but I think we as a younger generation, as an immigrant, let's say immigrant,
Yes.
we have understood that we should start that process and really trust the process. We have to trust what we are doing. And South Africa is what I guess you guys you're on the path, you're on the way, and just for our leaders to follow and create that environment for us.
Yeah, basically you're saying just we have to create men of principle, as I said before. I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting for Mr. Frank here. He was bringing out some points here, talking about bad leadership, and on the reasons on why we need to educate ourselves. He brought in iconic illustrations like Dangote in the society today, a man who has worked on the soil of Africa, and you know about him already.
Yeah.
So he brought Mr. Frank. He talked about bad leadership in terms of immigration.
Yeah.
And based on the leaders not providing the needed amenities for the youth, for the people to stay, to see reasons to remain in their countries.
Sure.
What do you think, for example, as an immigrant,
Sure.
you go outside, you found greener pastures, do you see reasons of returning to your country to make it a better place?
Yeah, because you see, I'm using my country's resources to study here, so I have to find a way to return that back. That's my first reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my second reason is basically I have to be part of the rebuilding of my nation, my birthland. You understand? My first reason to return back to my country is to give back its resources. My first thing, basically reason. The second one is to educate people. That's all. Yeah. Basically, that's my reason to return back to my country.
Yeah, quite. Mr. Frank?
Yeah.
Now I will call to our brothers living abroad. In Africa, there's this kind of mentality. When you go abroad, it seems like you reach the last level in the society. That's not true. African living abroad, they have this kind of manner to sell fake dreams to other people living back home. They try to show them that where they are is hell, and where they are living abroad is like a paradise. No, we have to change. Actually, African living abroad today, or who got other citizenship, they have to invest. They have to give back to the nation. They have to emulate the sense of excellencies. They have to not to make people living home to see abroad like the place to be. No, those living abroad already have what they have to do. They have to make people back home understand that we are here. We got some technologies. We got some knowledge. We are coming back home to share with you guys and help our continent or our country grow in the process of development. That's the first thing to do. When you are broke, you have to stop selling fake dreams to people. Imagine somebody like, okay, today he's living in America for 10 years, 11 years. When he call you, say, oh, you might say, hey Mike, how is Africa? How is it? America is fine. We are having snow. You don't have to I mean, I don't want to say marginalized, but you have to say, Frank, Michael, yeah. Today I saw something in US. The new iPhone X is out. How can we create? What can we do to have our own iPhone in Africa? Not each iPhone, but how can we create? How can I bring that technology back home? That's the most important thing. So as I say, those who already abroad and who got the technology, who study what been living in Europe, in America, in Asia, they have to share what they got from those countries from abroad. They have to share with other people back home to togetherness. You have to bring that spirit of togetherness. Mm-hmm. You have something that I don't have, share with me, and then I'm going to learn through the process, and then we can make Africa be the place that it used to be. Life started in Africa. Mathematics, all those stuff started in Africa. So we have to understand that part and play our role as young African and a future of Africa as a new leaders. We have to understand that and emulate. We have to create the sense of competition amongst African competition in the essence of being great.
All right. That was Mr. Frank's opinion. It's one thing to acquire skills, and it's another thing to implement those skills. Mr. Frank here is calling on immigrants to come together in developing the continent Africa. Easy said than done. We have to look at the positive sides of this. Based on bad leadership, I'll draw you guys back. Based on bad leadership, and how do you think, as an immigrant, returning to my country, how would I be able to subdue bad leadership? Because bad leadership in causing people to flee from their countries has gone through a widespread. It affects the health sector, where the government, they don't see reasons there. It has affected the economy of the country, where the government's bad leadership again due to bad leadership. So as an immigrant, what do you think? Like, going back home to tackle these reasons or not?
Okay, that's a broad question, to be honest. So now I'm studying an engineering field. So I'm not a journalist, I'm not an analyst or something, but I can provide something within my field. For example, perfection in my own field, like show my own principles and assertivity to other people. I mean, you can start from there. Because when you think about large-scale leadership, you have to start from your own. So you have to work your way up. So within my field, I'll try to be the perfect man, the most principled man, and be exemplary. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Being exemplary, one of the principles of Mr. Michael here. Mr. Frank, based on the same exact questions on bad leadership as an immigrant, what do you feel?
I think here the problem of Africa, of immigration in Africa, as I used to say, is bad leadership. How to change bad leadership? African, they need to understand and they need to know how to use their leaders. When you are abroad, when you are a student, you see how the world is going. No matter where you are living, but as let's take an example in US. US government give opportunity to people to prove themselves. They give them opportunity to be competitive. Like, all they want is to be great, and that's something that us Africans, we have to learn how to be great, how to change society. Our society. Changing leadership start with yourself. You have to change the way you think. You have to change the way your approach about situation in life. You have to be, if you seek change, you have to change first of all inside. Change can only come from inside before going outside.
That's what Mr. Michael talked about, change of mentality.
Change of mentality. And now we have to also be competitive. First of all, we have to seek greatness. You cannot be perfect, but you can be great. Understand? You have to be good on what he say he's doing engineering. He has to be great in that field. He has to know not everything, but you have to know the most important things to share with people, because you cannot share what you don't know. You share only what you really know. Now, on that point, young African or I will say the leader of tomorrow, so the younger generation, they have to understand who we need as a leader in our country. When you understand that point now, who you need, what kind of need of leaders you need, that's a great stage. I will say that's only 50% of the development in Africa. When you have settled the kind of leader that you want, the kind of government that you want, or what you really need for your good in Africa, that's 50% you work the 50% of your way. Not, I will say, it's already 50% of the success of development. You know what the kind of leader you want. You prepare yourself. You change. You convince people around you. You share your vision with others about the kind of leader you want. That's what you have to work on it, and it's really important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frank, on that point you've highlighted. Yeah, we've seen the movement of people for myriad reasons. We've seen solutions based on this movement, and we've discussed about the problems and the solutions. And to call the day off, I would like to hear your rounding point and what's your overall thought on this.
Yeah, basically the conclusion would be, first of all, we just said Africans are immigrating in a massive scale. Maybe from different point of view that might be right, but basically right now it's not right. So we've seen why the immigrants, we see poverty, instability, famine, and things like that. And we came to the solution, and we said that we need to be a man of principle. We need to be exemplary. Basically, what we have talked about right now just simply should be applied back home. That's all.
Thank you.
That's all. Yeah.
Your point, Mr. Frank?
Yeah.
In conclusion, I will say that for Africans who are living abroad now, studying or doing, having a good job, I can just ask them to give back to the community what they got from the community. Not all of them, of course, but they are the cornerstone of the new Africa. Like they have to come back home and share the knowledge, share what they study abroad with those back home, and that will be a huge step to the growing or to the development of Africa. So that's only what I can add for this thing, and say thank you to the viewers. Thank you, Mr. Mike, for the invitation.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Frank. That's it, viewers at home, for today's episode, After Africa and the Voice of Africa. We've widely talked about the movement of people for myriad reasons, the solutions, the problems today. And it's very good to have you today on the show, Mr. Frank and Mr. Michael.
Thanks for that.
Really great to have you guys today. So viewers at home, we just want to say thank you for your views and everything. Make sure you always keep following After Africa on YouTube and Instagram page, After Africa, and continue liking, following, and sharing our page, The Voice of Africa. See you soon in our next episode. Have a lovely day.